So getting this show was like pretty exciting for me
nice.
and my family.
Right, yeah. Bringing the whole family with you, that's cool. That's very nice, yeah. I think a lot of us were kind of surprised at how many people were actually making the trek in today, just because there are a lot of people from a whole across the nation. It's not just locals. So
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very nice. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is a big opportunity, and taking a well-respected museum and the things that you focus on with law enforcement and the different aspects. It's nice to come and look at that, because I think a lot of people have a single-mindedness about what police officers do. I myself was a military police. I never served as a civilian cop. So.
Right. Oh yeah, because you were Army MP, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember reading your bio.
Yeah.
Yep. Because I think you were stationed in Frankfurt, Germany, right?
Yeah, I was first. That's when I was with 3rd Armored Division.
Yeah. That was like a mid '80s, I think, right? '84 to '86, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
In 1983, I was in the reserves. I was going to Allegheny College at that time, and I was served with the 307th MP Company, which was part of the 99th Regional Support Command in Pennsylvania. Some of us, we went overseas and took part in an exercise called Operation Certain Shield. And I have no idea what we were doing. We just went to a lot of countries, but none of them in theater. So I didn't get my combat patch, but I served during that time. Like I said, I volunteered because I didn't have to go back in the military. I was out. But the thing that sucked about that was I was an E4 when I got out the first time. And when I went back in active duty, I had to lose 2 stripes. So I went back down to private E2, and that sucked. But I got my E4 back eventually. And that actually, when I got out of the military, I got out again as an E4 specialist. And so one of the questions that you had on your list of things is, how did I become an artist? Mm-hmm. So what had happened was, the day before I ETS'd, my colonel, the battalion, called me into his office. And I remember this so vividly. He asked me, "So Anderson, I'll go in, I'm at parade rest and everything." He says, "At ease, just relax." And so he said, "Anderson, what you gonna do when you get out of the Army?" And I thought for a moment, and I'm like, really, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought about becoming a cop again, but I decided I didn't want to live the lifestyle that's required to be a police officer. And also I wanted, if I was going to serve as an officer, I wanted to go like FBI or something like that, which I needed a 4-year degree that I did not have at that time. But I thought for a moment, I'm like, and it just came to me. I said, "I want to become an artist." And he said, "Why an artist?" I said, "I'm tired of people telling me what to do." And he said, "Anderson, there's always going to be people telling you what to do." I said, "I understand that, sir, but it's going to be on my terms." And because I worked for military intelligence and had the security clearance that I had, in my mind, I thought, well, if the colonel wants to check up on me, he can create a legitimate or false reason to check up on me. So I better follow through with me becoming an artist. So I started as a poet and performance artist, and I performed nationally. I did pretty well. I was a feature performer. People that's into poetry would know the New Norican Poets Cafe in Alphabet City in New York. And I was one of the feature performers and got to perform with Miguel Algaran, which was one of the original beat poets, Hispanic beat poets. And then from there, I was on a Lollapalooza tour in '94. and I performed on the third stage that they had with The Last Poets, and which was 1960s, 70s, sort of radical black music group. And there were some other really cool people that I got to perform with. And so at that time, like I said, I decided, because I was on the road so much as a poet, I said, well, I want to be here with my son. And so I said, well, I'll teach myself how to paint. And it was really crappy, but at that time it looked like a Rembrandt to me. And a friend of mine owned a couple, they owned a coffee shop, and I asked if I could show my artwork there. So that was my very first visual art show. And I was fortunate to have some friends, two of which I'm not friends with anymore, but that's one of life's things that happen. But because of them, which I'm grateful for, and I feel blessed either way, even though we're not friends anymore, they were a blessing because they were real artists, and they would let me come to their studio and watch them paint, and I would ask questions about blending and perspective and all that other stuff. And so like I said, I feel blessed that they were in my life, even though I've forgiven them in my heart. I eventually realized why I became an artist, and that's because I had what I call the chaos and cacophony in my head. It was just really loud and crazy. I used to love to fight. So I was always getting in fight. I wouldn't start them, but I guess I did instigate them in some ways. And I accidentally put this guy in a hospital this one night, and I waited for the cops to come. And I told the cops what had happened, because there was a bar called Crazy Mama's. My friend was a doorman, and it was just one of these it was a punk rockabilly club, and it was just one of those wild nights, and this guy was acting out. And so my friend asked me if I could take him out and just make sure he was all right. Well, when I took him out, he tried to hit me, and I'm like, dude, I'm trying to help you. And then sat him down and was trying to talk with him. He tried to hit me again. I'm like, man, don't do that. I really don't want to hurt you. And of course he did it again. And I hit him, and his eyes were in the back of his head. It was just one hit. And I heard his head conk. And at that time, we didn't have cell phones or any of these nice utensils that we have. So I'm yelling, dial 911. And when the cops came, I told him everything that happened, and he looked at me and he said, get the F out of here. Because I think he was more surprised that I was still there. I was there with him, making sure that the guy was safe. Mm-hmm. And so I left before he could change his mind. And the next day I went to the VA and said, I need to see a head doctor. I said, I got some issues that I need to work out. And that's when I realized painting was the best vehicle for me to express myself, to get out, because it's very cathartic, and I was able to get out, like I said, the chaos and cacophony, because I didn't realize how angry I was at that time. Now that I'm an older person, I'm a bit more mellow in life and everything, but I still have the memories that I can't get out, because I had two other friends who were killed. Well, one committed suicide, the other one was killed. And I've dealt with death, but yeah, it's different when because the military, just being a civilian cop, it's a very special bond that you have with your fellow officers and soldiers. And when something happens to one of them, it strikes you really hard.
And why do you think artistic expression is helpful for officers dealing with stress and trauma? You kind of already touched on it.
Yeah, for me, because there are things that we experience, and our mind, we're taught, and we have this thinking that we should be able to deal with whatever situation, and you got to man up. And when I say man up, I'm not being gender specific, male or female. You're supposed to be able to just take it and keep on going. And I know with myself, I was compartmentalizing so many things. And this is what I learned from my head doctors, is that I was compartmentalizing things, and there were cracks happening in the walls inside of my head. And I strongly believe that also happens with the civilian cops. Because you go into this field being optimistic, having some empathy, and then after a while, apathy starts setting in, and you don't want to burden your family or your friends with things that you've have been experiencing. And so it comes out a lot of times, unfortunately, in a negative way. If you're on duty, or if you're not on duty, or if you're out of it, such as myself, being a civilian. And so it's a way to release the demons and different things that you have to deal with, just because it's the nature of police work. There's no escaping it. Yeah, the officers deal with a lot of stuff that the general public doesn't understand. And some of the things that they do piss me off. Some of it needs to be done. And I think back when I was doing street duty, because I did mostly, I served mostly as a combat MP or physical security, but when I did street duty, you're dealing with a lot of different personalities, and you have to find a way to release that negative energy.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of leads me to my last question is, how would you recommend law enforcement explore art as therapy? There's a lot of different ways, but in your opinion, what do you think?
I think for me, it was a process. Yeah, because once I started seeing the head doctor at my local VA, I needed to talk to someone to get an understanding of what I was dealing with. Like I said, because I had been compartmentalizing so much that I didn't realize it. My granddad, who served in the Army, he was in both the European and Asian theater. He came up to me one time. He says, "Boy, what was it that you were doing in the Army?" And I'm like, I can't tell you, Granddad. This Granddaddy. I said, just because of the security clearance issues. But I think one of the first things is not to be afraid to get help. If you're still in uniform or out, not to be. And then from there, once you start understanding what's happening within yourself, you can paint, you can create whatever you want, and it doesn't matter if it looks great or not. It's that action of going back to the whole Boycean thing from the theory of social scope for mind, speech, and then physical embodiment or manifestation, you just start releasing it and you start feeling better and clear in your mind and having a better relationship with your family and friends, and more importantly, with yourself.